Hello and welcome to the Glitch Report podcast, episode 142. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. The stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. We're going to talk about video games. We've done it before, and there's no point in not beating a dead horse as far as I'm concerned. So we've talked about video games in the past. I figure, you know what? Let's talk about video games once more on this very show. Been playing a ton of games, like a ton of games. This is a week where I've come back with 5 different games that I've been kind of juggling and playing, and that's not even counting some of the games that I'm not going to get around to talking to this week. It is a crazy week. This was also it's been a week since a little under a week since the Switch 2 pre-orders went live in the United States and Canada. I'm going to share my experience getting a Switch 2, my experience trying to pre-order a Switch 2. We're going to talk about that as well. I'm going to maybe come around on my comments surrounding Michael Bay and the Transformers movies as well. We were talking about Michael Bay on the podcast last week, talking about potentially him doing an Outrun movie, getting Sydney Sweeney on as a producer for an Outrun movie. Listen, I like Michael Bay, but it turns out maybe I haven't seen as many Michael Bay movies as I thought, and maybe I'm going to go on a quest to correct some of those absences when it comes to Michael Bay movies I haven't seen. But first and foremost, on Thursday, I believe it was Thursday midnight, the Switch 2 pre-orders went live in Canada. And, I found myself up and lucid and physically able to put my credit card into a computer and order things off the internet. So it was around midnight, I was just in straight up goblin mode doing dirtbag things, Around midnight, the later it gets, I feel like the worse if you're still up, the later in the evening you get, I feel like the worst and worse your decisions become, right? And I feel like that especially goes for something like food. You might think, 8 o'clock rolls, and it obviously depends on the person, right? If you're a 9 to 5 cat or something, obviously the later you get in the day, your worse your choices are going to be. But, if you find yourself being like, 8 o'clock is a great time to order too much pizza, obviously that's going to happen. But once you get to midnight and you're getting food, next thing you know, you're just like fucking eating shredded cheese over the kitchen sink, underwear on, shirt off, just like a monster, just straight goblin mode. And in fairness, that wasn't exactly what I was doing. I think I might have been playing video games, or I don't know what I was doing. Sit in front of the computer as I often do. So, it was like, it was very, very, very close to midnight. I want to say it was like 11:55, 11:56, something like that. And I look at the clock and I'm like, oh shit, I guess those Switch 2 pre-orders are happening. Maybe I should take a stab at it. So I start looking at who's available for Switch 2 pre-orders and whatnot. And Best Buy wasn't doing, so this was like I said, just before midnight. Best Buy wasn't doing pre-orders until the morning of. And I think they were trying to time the Switch 2 pre-orders for when the stores physically opened on Friday. I think it was Thursday and night, Friday morning. Anyways, so Best Buy was going to time their pre-orders with the opening of their stores. GameStop was also doing the same thing. So I had some limitations on what I could get midnight for Switch 2 pre-orders. I checked Amazon and I had completely forgotten that Amazon was doing an invite system for Switch 2 pre-orders. You had to have signed up for an invite some time ago. I didn't do that. I couldn't find where to get the invite anyway, so I just thought to myself, oh fuck, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna, who fucking cares? I will, find somewhere else. The only place I could find at the time was Walmart. for Switch 2 pre-order. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I'll go to Walmart, and turns out I didn't know my Walmart password. I didn't know my Walmart password. And in fairness, I don't order a lot of things off Amazon. I gotta be honest. In general, I'm maybe not doing quite as much shopping as I used to these days. And then also on top of that, I don't buy a lot of things from Walmart's website. I'm more of an Amazon guy. Not that I really want to proclaim my loyalty to one big mega store over another, but I don't order a lot of shit off Walmart. I just don't. So to no surprise, I did not have a password that was ready to go when I tried to log in. So after resetting the Walmart password and realizing that Walmart was going to be the only place for me after bouncing around these other stores, it was like 12:05, at night. So pre-orders had been up for at least 5 minutes on Walmart's site. But I could get a Switch 2 into my cart. I could get a Switch 2 the first time I got around to doing it. I was able to get a Switch 2 into my cart. I was able to enter in my details for delivering it to my house and all that stuff. And then you'd go to place the order and it'd be like, nah, man, this isn't here. We don't have it. We don't have it. Right. So I would go back to the page on the website that had the Switch 2, like put the Switch 2 in your into your shopping cart. You would do that. And then it would say, hey, you can only buy one of these. And there's already one in your shopping cart. And I'm just like, motherfucker, like, it's not in my shopping cart, because every time I go to place the order, it'll let me fill in the order details for, credit card, shipping, delivery, all that stuff. And then it wouldn't go through. So I had to take the Switch 2 out of the cart. And as soon as you do that, the screen kind of weirdly loads, and it's just like, you don't have anything in your cart. And I'm like, yeah, I know I don't. And I'd go back to the page that had it to put it in the cart. And I was kind of able to do that back and forth for probably 10 minutes or so, adding it to the cart, trying to place it through, couldn't go through. And then it was just like, no, we straight up don't have it. But it showed that it was available for in-store pickup at a store near me for Walmart. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Same thing, where it would kind of let you get to the final stages before being like, nope, we just don't have it. So as a result, I'm kind of refreshing multiple Walmart pages on my computer between the screen that has it, the item listing that allows me to put it into a cart to start this process. I also have the shopping cart that already has it in it. I'm also trying to refresh the page that has the order confirmation, hey, are you going to find the final steps for placing this order? And as I'm doing that, refreshing these pages, Walmart's like, hey man, this store is designed for people who are human beings. Can you prove you're not a robot by clicking this button? And then the button wouldn't load. It was some other, some, I don't know, 3D graphic, just some loading screen, some button that just wouldn't go anywhere. I'm trying to click it. I'm trying to refresh the page, which only makes it want to prove that I am a robot more and more. I'm just like, there's no way for me to prove that I am not a robot. What the fuck is going on? So by around 12:15-ish, 12:20, I had just completely given up on ordering a Switch 2 from Walmart. That was it. Threw my hands in defeat and said, you know what? It's not going to work for me. The next morning, I'm waking up and I'm, getting ready to, I was I had my phone with me in the washroom, which just goes to prove just how much of a dirt bag I am, bringing my phone into the washroom like some sort of fucking caveman. And then I realized, oh fuck, the Best Buy and GameStop pre-orders are happening now for Switch 2. So I load up the Best Buy website on my phone. I'm hovering over the phone, and they're like, hey, we have a queue system. So you're going to enter this virtual line in order to get the Switch 2. And I don't know if they told me how many people were in line ahead of me or how long the lineup was, but it was very early on. By the time I'm entering in that queue at 9:05 in the morning or some stupid thing, not, it was like 9:06 or something, that like the line was so fucking long that there was no way for me to get a Switch 2 from Best Buy at all, right? You go and you jump onto the GameStop website, they're doing a queue system, same thing from what I remember. So I just threw my hands in the air and said, I guess I'm just not getting a Switch 2, which in fairness, you know, I wasn't really trying to get a Switch 2. Like, there is still a part of me that's like, I really don't want to spend, you know, $800 roughly after tax on Nintendo Switch 2. I was trying to get the Mario Kart bundle. I thought to myself, if I'm going to get this stupid thing, I'm going to get the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World bundled in. But I did not end up getting a Switch 2 during my time with the pre-orders. Amazon has an invitation system. I actually did sign up for an Amazon invitation system just yesterday around 7:30 last night. I was like, oh, they're doing an invitation system. So I got my invitation request received email from Amazon. It says, we process requests and send invites to qualified customers regularly while supplies last. If invited to purchase, you'll receive an email with a link that is valid for 22 hours. If you aren't selected during this round of invites, your request is still eligible to be selected in future rounds, so you don't need to resubmit another request for the next 3 months. Since supplies are limited, we won't be able to grant all requests. So what that means is, I'm assuming, just based on that language, two things. If you get a invite to buy one, they're more or less guaranteeing you the ability to buy one from them, but there's also the possibility that you may never get an invitation request back to you, just based on how busy they are. Costco Canada did pre-orders. They ended up canceling everybody's pre-orders. I don't know if Costco Canada is going to do in-store only day of. I really don't know. It seemed like I saw people online being like, "Oh my god, I got all this stuff from Costco Canada. That's cool." And now, like, the page isn't available at all on the Costco website in Canada anyways. Yeah, like, reports basically all saying like, oh, Costco in Canada canceled all of that stuff. So, you know, right now, if I were to get an opportunity, it would probably come in the form of that Amazon invite. I don't know if I'm going to get one anytime soon. I don't know, you know, when an invite would come my way, if they're going to get updated stock as part of the pre-orders, or if it's not going to be a scenario where it's like, hey, we're going to do another round of invitations, you know, after the consoles already come out. If I'm being completely honest, like, I'm not a huge Mario Kart guy, so, you know, for me, while I think it makes sense to get the game because it's going to be cheaper than buying it separately with the console, I'm not, you know, jumping up and down to play something like Mario Kart. The only real new game that Nintendo has shown that I would be interested in playing, which is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, is Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that game doesn't even come out until July. I believe it's July 11th that game comes out. So there are not a lot of good reasons to buy a Switch, but there are a lot of good reasons to not buy a Switch, such as price and availability and jumping through these hoops. I will say, I was talking to somebody at work who I won't say too much about how they ended up doing all of this, but someone that I work with ended up with 2 Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders. And he was explaining that he's not a scalper, he's not a robot, he's not any of those things. But it was a scenario where he was physically in line to get one somewhere, while also online trying to get a Switch 2, because he was like, I don't know, like, fucking roll the dice, right? You don't know if you're gonna get one in line or online or any of this stuff. And ended up with 2, and then there was a conversation of like, well, there are a lot of people at work that would really love a Nintendo Switch 2 if you wanted to, make something happen for some of the folks at work. I personally I don't like. I got to be honest, if given the option to get a Switch 2, I might be in a position where I would buy a Switch 2 to then sell to somebody who really wanted one but couldn't get one. I don't know if I'd be willing to take a hit on the 700, bucks plus tax for myself. I got plenty of games on my PC. I got plenty of games coming out throughout the rest of the year that I would be okay not playing one. But the idea of hooking somebody up that friends or family, especially in a scenario where there are multiple people that want it. The only thing that came to my mind was that scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker snaps the pool cue in half and tosses it to the two gangsters who are going to, I guess, fight to be in his crew, but only one of them survives. And I imagine that if you have friends or family that are all trying to get a Switch 2 from you, and you're not a scalper, I imagine it's going to be something similar. There will be blood. I will say that. Long story short, did not end up getting a Switch 2. I'm not too heartbroken by it. I would be curious to see what that invitation system looks like for Amazon.ca, but I don't have a lot of high hopes at the moment for Switch 2, and I'm not too worried about it one way or the other. Last week on the podcast, we were talking about Michael Bay, the hit maker himself, Michael Bay, and I was going through Michael Bay's Wikipedia page, as I often do. And I was looking at his filmography, and I'm starting to realize that, I've seen a fair number of Michael Bay movies, but I haven't seen nearly as many as I thought. When I think about Michael Bay movies I've seen, it's Bad Boys, it's The Rock, it's Bad Boys 2, it's Transformers, the first of his Transformers movies, and it is Pain and Gain. I tried to watch Six Underground, which is on Netflix, and it seemed terrible. It's the one with Ryan Reynolds in it, and it just seemed like the most expensive direct-to-DVD movie I had ever seen, which is not the praise that some people may make it out to be. I just remember thinking God, this sucks. Anyways, when I look at the other movies from Michael Bay, I realize that I have never seen Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, The Island. I have never seen 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, and I haven't seen Ambulance, which apparently Ambulance is a great movie. Ambulance, his most recent movie from 2022. But as I'm going through it, I'm counting the movies, and I'm just like, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Distinction, Transformers The Last Night. This motherfucker Michael Bay made five Transformers movies. Five Transformers movies. I have only seen one of them. And for a couple of reasons. In fairness, I don't remember that first Transformers movie being particularly good. But the other thing is, Transformers were a little before my time. I grew up at a time where I was even a little too young for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you think about Transformers or G.I. Joe, or later on something like TMNT, I was not. That was all before my time to some extent. So, I am someone who was just never going to be a big big Transformers guy. Oh, I also think he made a movie called We Are Storer, which is a documentary film about a group of parkour free running athletes. Sounds interesting. I don't know if I necessarily need a movie by Michael Bay, but hey, more power to him. That all being said, I remember thinking that first Transformers movie is not very good. I saw a little bit of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I think that's the one where Shia LaBeouf's character is in college, and then the parents follow him to college as the robots take over and all the fighting happens and whatnot. And I think at some point in that movie, the parents get into doing drugs, and they become stoners. And I just remember thinking, God, this seems even worse than the other Transformers movies. But long story short, I'm here to tell you right now, I'm going to watch all of these Transformers movies. I've never seen the original animated Transformers movie, so you'll have to forgive me for not being an expert on Transformers movies in general, but I'm going to, when it comes to the live action Transformers movies directed by Michael Bay, I am going to watch all of them. Am I going to make like a big deal about it? We're going to talk about it on the podcast. Probably not. I suspect I can maybe get through one of these a week, assuming that they don't completely turn my brain into fucking mush. And that's starting with the original 2007 movie. So yeah, I'm going to watch more Michael Bay movies. I figure if I'm going to watch Michael Bay movies, I might as well get a better understanding of Transformers. I would just say this going into this stupid idea that I feel the way I feel about Michael Bay spending a bunch of time making Transformers movies is how I feel about James Cameron spending a bunch of time making Avatar movies. I just feel like he is far better suited for something else. I don't know why either of these guys has this passion for this god awful franchise. In the case of something like Avatar, like it's obviously original from the man himself, James Cameron, so it's not like he has to work within the rights holders and stuff like that. But like, why was the money that good? Was he given that much creative freedom when it comes to the Transformers movies? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out by watching all 5. I know there are other live action Transformers movies. I think there's 7 live action movies total. One that's a Bumblebee spinoff. That's the one where John Cena is a bad guy. And apparently Bumblebee is like the best Transformers movie by far. And then I think there's at least 1 or 2 others. I'm looking this up now because I hate myself. All right, films. Here we go. So yeah, the Michael Bay Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, The Last Night. Then there was the Bumblebee movie in 2018, and then in 2023 there was Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. And I don't know if that movie is any better than the others. I just know that I think The Last Night. I'm really starting to perhaps date myself a little bit with my understanding of Transformers. I think Age of Extinction has Dinobots, and the other one, the Rise of the Beast, I think has Beast Warriors in it, or Maximals, whatever the fuck they're called, fucking Transformers. Anyways, that's my plan. So come back next week and I'll tell you a little bit about that first Transformers movie. I also think that Transformers, obviously a big property in games, maybe not so hot right now, but there's been a time where Transformers was very, very hot. There were a lot of Transformers games being tied in with the movies back when those movies were coming out. Activision was making a lot of those. Then Activision spun it off into their Transformers, like Rise of the Fall of Cybertron, the Rise of the Dark Spark, and all these other games that we don't see anymore for one reason or another. Maybe that's something that Microsoft could potentially bring back as now owners of Activision, but they'd probably have to go do a new deal with Hasbro and all this stuff. I have a Transformers game on Steam. I know it's been delisted, but I still own it, and I can still re-download it. That is Transformers Devastation, which is based on the cartoon series. Again, not something I'm particularly familiar with. That is made by the good folks over at Platinum, but again, that game does not exist anymore, I guess, based on the G1 Transformers. Anyways, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we got some news. Stick around. We ain't going anywhere. Welcome back to the podcast. Let's kick things off talking about news if that's not too much trouble. Breaking news. This was I guess actually this is from yesterday. Call of Duty Black Ops Season 3 is going to roll out, and they're adding Seth Rogen to the game. You will be able to buy and play as the man himself, Seth Rogen. There's a couple different Seth Rogen costumes. One is him in like a suit and tie, like a very colorful suit and tie. And then the other is like Seth Rogen in a fucking bucket hat and like military gear on and all this other stupid shit. And that is to say that, like, if you're not familiar with Call of Duty, from a multiplayer perspective, if you only played the single player games, your story-based game or single player game or whatever, that's fine. But if you've never played the Call of Duty games on in multiplayer, one thing to note is that Call of Duty really likes weed. Call of Duty thinks weed and weed imagery and stoner comedy is hilarious. And you might think, well, how does that necessarily work in a multiplayer shooter, right? In a, competitive multiplayer shooter that's based on military dudes doing military things. Like, you don't see a lot of like stoner comedy in the in the military, right? And to be honest, it's always felt kind of random. It's kind of felt off-putting to some extent. Like, it just feels kind of forced, and to the extent of like, well, we imagine that people that play a lot of games are, dirtbags, stoner degenerates, or something like that. And as such, we're going to make imagery and in-game content that really tailors to that sort of experience, right? If you're just sitting around listening to Afro Man on repeat, and don't get me wrong, I think Afro Man is a fine artist. If you're just sitting around playing Call of Duty with, doped beyond your imagination, maybe you would like to be reminded of the drugs that you're doing while you play the game that is reminding you of the drugs that you're doing. You might be thinking, GnittWitt, take it easy, man. Take it easy. It's just Seth Rogen. It's a couple of like weed imagery and stuff and whatnot in Call of Duty. How bad can it be? It has gone way beyond this in the past. They included Cheech and Chong in the last Call of Duty game. They have done all sorts of weed stuff in games for years, and I don't know, like listen, if you were to ask me honestly, like, what do I think? I think it doesn't fucking matter. It's just, Call of Duty has moved away from being a game trying to represent serious military imagery into, I don't know, you're playing as fucking Rhea Ripley and you're hitting people with the Riptide move to kill them in a Call of Duty match. You're fucking the Skeletor, you're Michael Myers, you're all of this shit in Call of Duty. And like, to be honest, that's fine, because when I look at something like Fortnite, I'm just like, it's kind of the same thing. The only difference is that Call of Duty is an M-rated game, and some people might expect some level of maturity, sincerity. I don't know what from Call of Duty, but Call of Duty is dumb. It's kind of always been dumb. It is just, evolved into being dumber with the times, I guess is what I'm saying. Is like, I don't think if people had, wanted more, I don't know, secular, sincere, like, first person shooting multiplayer, then maybe we would have gotten to a point where, it's like, oh, you're going to play at, we've added the Canadian troops and we've added the American troops and we've added like troops that are based on real world guys and all this stuff. Instead, it's like, I don't know, do you want to play as Cody Rhodes? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll play as Cody Rhodes. I don't know, I'll spend $20 to play as Cody Rhodes. That's all to be said, that if you want to play as Seth Rogen, he's going to be available May 11th as part of the Season 3 Reloaded High Art Event Pass happening over at Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We're going to turn our attention now to EA and Respawn Entertainment. Respawn, the creators of Titanfall and Titanfall 2. They also creators of Apex Legends. They also worked on the Star Wars Jedi games, to name a few. And they have really grown to become one of the biggest, developers at EA, with a big focus on helping, various teams like the Battlefield teams and so on and so forth, taking on a lot of different projects. And it's been announced that there are going to be hundreds of jobs lost at EA as the company culls 2 different Respawn game projects. Up to 400 workers are said to be laid off. So I don't know if this is not, I should say, clarify. This is 100 people being laid off at Respawn, and another 200 to 300 across other EA departments. On Tuesday, Respawn announced that it had made the decision to step away from 2 early-stage incubation projects and make some targeted team adjustments across the Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi teams. According to Bloomberg, these projects include an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe that was not close to release. 100 staff have been laid off at Respawn, as claimed, and a further 200 to 300 across other EA departments. A company spokesperson said, as part of our continued focus on our long-term strategic priorities, we've made the select changes within our organization that more effectively align teams and allocates resources in service of driving future growth. Now, for context, EA will continue to work on new Apex Legends content, and they're still working on the 3rd entry in its Star Wars Jedi series. It said, these decisions aren't easy, and we are deeply grateful to every team affected. Their creativity and contributions have helped build Respawn into what it is today. We're offering meaningful support to those impacted, including exploring new job opportunities within EA. In a statement published last year alongside the announcement of nearly 700 company-wide layoffs, EA Entertainment President Laura Miele said that after a review, it had decided that Respawn should focus on the Jedi and Apex Legends series. There was also another Star Wars game that was announced in 2022 that was supposed to be a first-person shooter, helmed by former LucasArts veteran and Medal of Honor co-creator Peter Hirschman. That was also canceled. I'm kind of two minds of all this. So the first thing I think of is they spread Respawn too thin. And they could never properly focus on these different projects as a result, right? They struggled to maintain develop, like Apex Legends at an all-time low. From my understanding, Apex Legends is really struggling as an online game right now. Star Wars Jedi, I mean, they're going to make a 3rd one, but I don't know how hyped people are for that. And then there's also this thing of like, they were working on at least 2 other projects on top of Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi. There's always the rumors swirling around that, Respawn is finally going to work on a proper Titanfall sequel, a Titanfall 3, but that hasn't really come to fruition just yet. Respawn helping with the Battlefield teams and moving people around to do stuff like that. It really feels like you spread this developer way too thin, and then in order to kind of recover from that, you're just putting your eggs in the same baskets that they were already in prior to you spreading them so thin. Like, they're working on the 3rd Star Wars Jedi game. Apex Legends has been around for a long time, right? Like, this isn't like, these are not new games necessarily. When I think about, kind of where Respawn is at, Apex Legends came out in February of 2019. Like, this game has been around the block. I don't care what anybody says. When you look at a game like Titanfall 2 came out in 2016. So, obviously Respawn had been putting out games. Like, I'm not here to say otherwise. They worked on Titanfall 2, Apex Legends. They did Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. They did that VR game, the Medal of Honor VR game. It was a Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, and then they did Star Wars Jedi Survivor. They're currently working with Bit Reactor on Star Wars Zero Company. That is the turn-based tactical game. But damn, man. And they also worked on Colette. They also worked on Colette, which is a short film as well. So I mean, it's just, to me, like, when you think about it, it's just like, it's Titanfall, it's Apex for the longest time, it's that one Medal of Honor game, and then it's those Star Wars Jedi games. Like, they spread them out way too thin, and then they and then they kind of put the eggs back in the basket as a result. Like, I'm kind of sitting here wondering, like, what is the point of doing this in the first place, just to let people go? But it's one of those scenarios where, like, these companies focus on growth. They have a responsibility to shareholders and all of these people to grow the company beyond anything else. Like, it's growth or nothing. If your quarter is down, you gotta grow even more in the next quarter. If you're down year over year, heads are gonna roll, right? And it's a scenario where a lot of the people that are making these decisions are the people that get paid enough to have golden parachutes, that get paid enough to be able to come up with creative excuses for why things aren't working, and why they have to make the tough calls that they make, while the people that are the foot soldiers, the people that are in the trenches making the things, are the ones that are like, yeah, this isn't working, or this isn't what we want to do, or we have changes that you won't let us implement that get silenced as a result. So, as always, I wish everybody the best of luck at Respawn and the larger departments at EA as well. But when I read you this next little bit, like, you're going to see why these people are just numbers on the board to the board and other leadership members over at EA. EA shares declined by more than 16% in January, losing around $6 billion in market revenue after it made its pre-earnings announcement that Football Club 25 and Dragon Age the Veilguard had failed to meet expectations. But the other thing I would say is there were rumors going around that, like, it's to some extent Football Club and to some extent Apex Legends. Like, my understanding is that Apex Legends has really stunk up the bed to a large extent since for some time anyways. And there were rumors, I'd have to try to pull it up here, but my understanding is that, like, some people were saying, like, no, it's actually Apex, and to some extent Football Club, and to another extent Dragon Age the Veilguard that underperformed. But you think about live service stuff, like how EA isn't able to print money making a football game every year, I don't understand. And when you have a game like Apex Legends that's been around for so long, how you're not able to still support that and keep people interested, I don't understand. Let's move on, and we're going to move forward. Much like Borderlands, its release date is moving forward. It will now release a week and a half earlier than expected. The news was announced in a video posted on Twitter by Gearbox CEO and dirtbag magician Randy Pitchford, who then removed the video, saying that it had gone up too early, and then he reposted the video afterwards. And now we know that the game will be released on September 12th instead of September 23rd. There will also be the other news to note about this is there will also be a Borderlands 4 PlayStation State of Play coming. By the time you've heard this podcast, it'll already be over, because it is happening on Wednesday, April 30th at 2 p.m. So for context, like, Borderlands 4 is not a PlayStation 4 exclusive game or anything like that, but they're doing, PlayStation's doing a lot of the co-marketing for Borderlands, so they are going to give a, some sort of live stream, some sort of pre-recorded video state of play for Borderlands 4, and that's happening 2 p.m. today on the 30th. You know, it would be awesome if Borderlands 4 was good. However, in the long-running Borderlands franchise, they have made about 2 good video games and 1 terrible movie. So I'm not too sure kind of what to expect. You know, when I think about the Borderlands games, if I pull up some details here about Borderlands, if I really were to sit there and be like, what Borderlands do I like? I like Borderlands 1, 2009. That's a great game. I think Borderlands 2 is okay. I thought the DLC that they did for Borderlands 2 with like Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep and all that stuff was kind of cool. I think Borderlands the pre-sequel is not a good game. I think it's pretty flat overall. It feels like a kind of direct to DVD ass spin-off game. They made that Tales from the Borderlands game. That was the folks over at Telltale, the Batman and Walking Dead what the else was the game that they made? What was the game that they made? You know, the one with the Wolfman and the whatever the hell, the Wolf Among Us. They made the Wolf Among Us. Anyways, they made a Tales from the Borderlands games. Apparently people love Tales from the Borderlands, even if you're not a fan of Borderlands. If you just like the games that Telltale made, apparently that game is great. I think Borderlands 3, again, is okay. Again, they really don't change enough of the formula, in my opinion. And then they made Tiny Tina's Wonderlands in 2022. I think Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a pretty cool game. I think they change just enough of the game in terms of the random combat encounters, the overworld map, the more in-depth character class system. I think Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is pretty good. So it's a scenario where they've made 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to count some of the spin-offs. So main games, we're doing 1, 2, we're doing 3, we're doing 4, 5, and now Borderlands 4 is technically the 6th game. And out of 6 games so far, I only think 2 of them are particularly good. I mean, listen, if you had never played a Borderlands game and you fired up something like Borderlands 2 or Borderlands 3, you might like the shooting, you might like the loot and the leveling up and the getting better gear and all that stuff. For me, I think the writing really, really stinks in Borderlands. I think Borderlands 3 and Borderlands 2 have some pretty bad writing, some really awful jokes. And like, when I mean awful jokes, I mean like, oh, it's so offensive, it's so bad. Oh. I mean, it's just like, it's not fucking funny. It's aggressively unfunny. And I think there's nothing more annoying, especially in video games or anything, like where it is trying so hard to be funny and it is so actively unfunny, it's almost painful. So Borderlands 1 started it all. I think it's a great game. I still recommend it. I don't know how well it's held up since its 2009 release. Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, like I said, what are you gonna do? They're okay. Borderlands pre-sequel, waste of time. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, that is a cool game. So hey, I would love it if Borderlands 4 was good, but their batting average has not been amazing so far. But when we talk about a company that has been batting 1,000, killing it with every release so far, I'm talking about Remedy. Remedy is working on their new game, FBC Firebreak. That is the co-op first-person shooter set in the Control universe. They have confirmed it is coming out this summer. It is also going to be coming to Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus day one. However, one thing to note is that, with Game Pass, it's going to come to PC Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate day one. For PlayStation Plus, it is not going to be one of their monthly games. You do need to get the extra or premium tier of PlayStation Plus to get the game. So, keep that in mind, which in fairness, you do need the higher end tier of Xbox Game Pass anyways, but what are you doing not paying for the highest tier of Xbox Game Pass to get the day one editions for those games? The game is going to be $39.99 USD, so $40 in the States. A budget-y price for what they're trying to go for. There will also be a deluxe edition of the game that's going to cost $50 US. It's going to include numerous cosmetic options and voice packs for the characters. The Firestarter Premium Voice Pack, the Pencil Pusher Premium Voice Pack, the Firestarter Armor Set, the Apex Revision, which includes helmet, body armor, and gloves, the Scorched Remnant Double Barrel Shotgun Skin, the Golden Firebreak Spray, and a classified requisition called Firestarter, which is a collection of 36 unlockable cosmetic items, including weapon skins, sprays, and armor sets. I didn't say this, but the game's coming out June 17th. So if you're looking to get into some first-person shooting, cooperative business set in the Control universe, June 17th. PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. And like I said, if you have Game Pass or you have the PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium tier, that is coming there as well. But, you know, like the thing is that I really don't know, like when we hear first-person shooter, that's cool. I like first-person shooters. I'd be okay with that. When I hear cooperative first-person shooter, the first thing I think is like, well, can I still play the game by myself? If I were to load up the game by myself, is it going to force me to play with other team members as a result of it being multiplayer? Or can I still play through the game by myself, just maybe potentially at a slower pace, so on and so forth? I don't know the details of that yet. There's a possibility that we're not going to really know how that multiplayer stuff works until the game comes out. But you know, Video Games Chronicles had a hands-on demo with FBC Firebreak. They said that it was cautiously optimistic about the game. They also said that it will offer free and premium cosmetics, so you'll be able to unlock free things in the game. You'll also be able to spend real money on cosmetics in the game. They also noted that nothing will be time limited. The system, known as Acquisitions, will reward players with new gear and cosmetics simply by playing the game. Players can buy new weapons, equipment, and armor, and more with the in-game currency that's earned through the gameplay, and that there will be no limited time windows or rotating stores. If an item is added to the game, it is always available. There will also be premium cosmetic items known as classified requisitions, which are purchased with real money. Remedy says that these items are purely cosmetic and have no gameplay impact and will remain available permanently. When Video Games Chronicles kind of talked about their time playing FBC Firebreak, they said the gameplay looks compelling from what we were shown, but its real strength lies in how much license the Control universe gives the team. Realistically, due to the nature of the oldest house, that is the location that the Control game is set in, the first Control game is set in, and the Control lore, there's no limit on how creative the team can get with map design, enemy design, and more. And if there's one thing that's certain, it's that there are few studios with more creativity flowing through them than Remedy. The game's out soon, June 17th. We'll find out more by then, if not earlier. If you were looking to play Far Cry 4 on a PlayStation 5, there has never been a better time to play Far Cry 4 on a PlayStation 5, because that game has now received a 60 frames per second update. The game was first released in 2014. It was backwards compatible on PlayStation 5 at launch. But the Ubisoft has just released an update that removes the frame rate lock on the game, allowing the game to reach a much higher frame rate on PlayStation 5 consoles. Now, in fairness, the game has been running at a higher frame rate of 60 FPS on Xbox Series X since 2021, when Microsoft introduced its FPS boost feature and applied it to such titles like Far Cry 4 when it first happened. But also, you know, Ubisoft has a history of doing this to some extent, because Ubisoft added a 60 frames per second update to Assassin's Creed Syndicate on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S via backwards compatibility. It also added 4K resolution for PS5, PS5 Pro, and Xbox Series X and S. They also added a 60 FPS patch for Assassin's Creed Origins. They also added a update to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which also provided 60 frames per second approach. For those that are maybe unfamiliar, FPS or frames per second is just how smooth the game runs. So most games are going to run at 30. Some games even dip below 30 at the time, and that's why it feels a little choppy, a little stuttery, both in animations and just in kind of controls and movement. 60 FPS then doubles it to make it feel even more smoother, and even more responsive at times. This is particularly handy when you're playing a fast-moving game. So, for example, Call of Duty games are locked to 60 frames per second to provide a very smooth experience while shooting. And you would also get a lot of benefit out of 60 frames per second in something like a racing game or a fighting game. Specifically, a lot of story-based games, a lot of open world games don't often go for the 60 frames per second in order to better support graphical fidelity and scope and size of the world. You won't see a game like God of War necessarily have 60 frames per second unless it was an older game that got updated and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of 60 frames per second or higher in games, so if you do get the chance to play something like Assassin's Creed Origins or Odyssey or Syndicate or Far Cry 4, and you're playing it on a PS5 or an Xbox Series X and S, try that 60 frames per second mode, because I think you will be impressed at just how smoothly that game moves. Speaking of moving, Elden Ring has moved 30 million copies since release. Elden Ring is far and away the best-selling game from the good folks over at From Software. 30 million copies. Back in February 2022, Elden Ring came out. For context, Elden Ring came out in February of 2022. For comparison, as of March 2024, the entire Dark Souls trilogy has released around 30 million copies. So Elden Ring just blowing away expectations, even when compared to the trilogy of games by Dark Souls. Obviously, 30 million is still less than 40, but over the course of 3 games, compared to 1, that's pretty darn good. What else do we know about Elden Ring? They announced that Elden Ring is going to be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. It will get a version of the game called the Tarnished Edition. Elden Ring also received an expansion, that's Shadow of the Erd Tree. They're also working on the multiplayer spin-off game Elden Ring Night Reign. That's coming out later this year. May 30th, actually. Night Reign's out very, very soon. Very soon. You know, Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yote get a lot of comparisons with stuff like Assassin's Creed, and Assassin's Creed Shadows gets a lot of comparisons to those games. But how similar are they exactly? Sucker Punch has shared some new Ghost of Yote details around the game's non-linear story mode. They've explained kind of how that stuff works. I'm going to describe this to you. I'm going to read what they wrote. You tell me if this sounds very similar to how I talked about the story in Assassin's Creed Shadows or other Assassin's Creed games, so on and so forth. They said the main theme of this game is revenge. The main character, Atsu, has a big trauma in her childhood and goes on a journey to get revenge. The game will see players hunt down the Yote Six, a group of warriors that have caused death and destruction across Japan. As players hunt them down, a sash worn by the protagonist Atsu will display the names of the Yote Six that she is pursuing. Nate Fox and Jason Cornell visited the game setting, which today is known as the prefecture of Hokkaido, to research the game. They said, we have researched cooperation. We received cooperation from various advisors regarding the depiction of the Anu people and the Anu culture of the time. Like with the previous game, we have also thoroughly researched Japanese culture and incorporated it into this project. Cornell said, I also went to Hokkaido to research Anu culture and had people knowledgeable about Anu culture introduce me to museums, folk crafts, which I incorporated into the worldview of this work. By the way, I also went to the mountains with them and had the experience of picking wild vegetables. Players will be able to, so back to the story of the game, players will be able to approach the Yote Six in any order, and the game will also introduce new close combat weaponry. Both Japanese cinema and Western dramas have inspired the game. They go on to add, in terms of an open world adventure, Ghost of Yote has the greatest freedom and the biggest map of any open world game we have ever made. And if you're looking forward to playing that game, that's going to come out October 2nd, PS5 exclusive, though I imagine that a PC version won't be too far away. Let's talk Clair Obscur. We got some more news, man. I'm still going with news, so this is going to be a girthy, thick podcast today. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has passed 1 million copies shipped, and that's not including Game Pass players. You know, a lot of people were wondering, like, oh, you know, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is coming out just after, you know, the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered came out on Game Pass. Expedition 33 is on Game Pass. How is this game going to do sales-wise? And it is apparently doing quite well, shipping 1 million copies, and that's not counting everybody playing it on Game Pass. The developer, Sandfall Interactive, announced that the game had shipped 1 million copies. It is also the studio's debut title, and noted that this number includes physical copies shipped to stores rather than 1 million copies sold directly to customers. So, fuzzy math. The number of players reached by the game is likely far higher thanks to its inclusion on Game Pass on both console and PC. However, Sandfall has yet to release those numbers publicly. The game has proven to be a huge success for the indie studio, which many worried would get lost in the fan excitement around the decision to shadow drop Oblivion Remastered 2 days before its release. This caused some to express concern that the two large RPGs releasing so closely to each other would potentially cannibalize each other's sales. But with Bethesda announcing that over 4 million people had played the Oblivion Remastered since launch, it appears that both publishers are happy with their respective launches. This is the debut release from French studio Sandfall Interactive and is described by the studio as a reactive turn-based RPG that'll transport you to a beautiful, surrealist new world inspired by France's La Belle Epoque, a period famous for its stunning and lavish contributions to the country's world-renowned culture of art. The game stars Andy Serkis, best known for Golem. It also features Ben Starr, who played the role of Clive in Final Fantasy 16. As they kind of describe the game as a member of the Expeditioners who are embarking on an impossible quest to end the Paintress's cycle of death, you'll journey through a vast and beautiful fantasy world where you'll battle deadly adversaries, befriend fabled creatures, and discover traces of those who came before. I'll talk about a little bit of Clair Obscur in just a moment, but let's get through the rest of the news real quick. EA has confirmed that their new Skate game will not be playable offline. They have also reaffirmed that it is coming out in early access sometime in 2025. This is years after the game was initially announced as being rebooted in 2020. They've been kind of, hosting Q&As and updates and stuff like that. So they kind of said this in one of their Q&As. We have an ambitious vision of Skate, an ever-growing, ever-evolving skateboarding sandbox that expands over time with the feedback of the players living in San Vansterdam. Our early access launch will only be day one of that experience, a starting point from which new features, improvements, and content will be added over time. The Q&A section confirmed that the game will feature crossplay and that many in-game currencies, which can be bought with real money, that the players have spent during the currently running playtests will be given back to them for the early access launch. So if you spend money in the early playtest of the game now, so the game's not out, but you can play it if you have access. If you spend money in this unreleased version of the game, you will then have that money refunded back to you in the form of in-game currency when the game launches for real. The Q&A also stated that the game won't feature an offline mode, with the Skate team citing the evolving city as a reason for the mandatory online connection. The simple answer, no. The game and the city are designed to be living, breathing, massively multiplayer skateboarding sandbox that is always online and always evolving. You'll see bigger things evolve, like changes to the city over time, as well as smaller things like live events and other in-game activities. In order to deliver on our vision of a skateboarding world, the game will require a live connection. This is probably not much of a surprise if you've been in our playtest. The game will also be free to play. This is the debut title from Full Circle, a Vancouver-based EA studio headed up by former Xbox Live general manager Daniel McCulloch, who spent 15 years with Microsoft's gaming business before departing in 2020. I will say this. I'm not going to talk about whether I have played the game or not. I'm not going to talk about whether I have access to the game or not. I will just say this. At no point during the announcement or reveal of Skate did it ever seem like it was anything other than going to be a free-to-play live service game that required an online connection. At no point did they make it seem like it was going to be some sort of single-player offline experience. It always seemed to me, and maybe it's just because I've been paying more attention to the game than others because I really like Skate, I don't know, but it always seemed to me like it was going to be a free-to-play, live service, online-only game. And honestly, I'm okay with it. Like, you can be mad and be like, oh, they're going to take my video game away at some point. Like, dog, they'll take your video games. Like, I'm telling you right now, if there ever comes a day where you can't access your PlayStation Plus or Game Pass or Destiny or GTA Online games because some shit went down, that shit is going to be far more debilitating than just losing your video game. So just keep all of that in mind. I wouldn't worry about losing access to some of these games, though they might go away. And if they do, they probably went away for a reason, and they told you up front that it was going to be an online only game. So if you invested a bunch of time thinking that it was something that it's not, it's really on you. I don't know what to say, but at no point during the presentation of this game did I ever think it was going to be an offline single player experience similar to something like the original Skate games. If you're disappointed, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should play the game before you make a judgment call or not. I don't care. I'm not your dad. Don't play video games if you don't want to. Real quick news story here. Resident Evil 4, the remake of Resident Evil 4 is the fastest to reach 10 million sales in the series lifetime. Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2 remake have also both passed the 15 million sales target. All that is to say is that Resident Evil is killing it, Capcom is killing it, and it is very exciting to see these games continue to be very successful for Capcom, even years after they came out, like in the case of something like Resident Evil 7. Our final news story, Evil Dead the game is no longer on the Epic Games Store and the PlayStation Store, which some people are starting to think means that the game will be shut down. The game has been removed from those online stores, and the game's third anniversary is not too far away. The Game of the Year edition of Evil Dead the game is currently available on the PlayStation Store, but can only be found by searching for it on Google. If a player searches for the game on the actual PlayStation website or through the PS console, the game won't appear in the listings. The game is currently available on Steam and Xbox. As of right now, the game is available on Steam and Xbox. But players are concerned that its removal from the Epic Games Store and PlayStation Store may suggest a complete dislisting is currently rolling out, followed by a potential shutdown of its online servers in the future. For those who'd never played it, The Evil Dead, the game, is a game that came out in May 13th of 2022. Some have suggested that the licensing deal with publisher Boss Team Games may be expiring, but in October, Boss Team released the Retro Realms Arcade Collection, which is a retro-themed title featuring 16-bit style games based on The Evil Dead and Halloween. Video Games Chronicles, as always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles, contacted Boss Team Games for the comment to find out whether the Epic Game Store and PlayStation Store versions would be returning or whether the Xbox and Steam versions were going to be delisted as well. Now, if you never played it, The Evil Dead the game is a joint production by Saber Interactive and Boss Team Games and contains the likenesses of characters from the series. So when you play as Ash, he looks like Bruce Campbell. The game has some single-player elements, but it's mainly an online player versus player game. Players can choose to play as either the heroes or the Deadites, with the latter team trying to stop the humans from achieving their goal. They can also become the demon itself, possessing human players. I didn't play much of the Evil Dead. I don't really care for a lot of these games, so I never played much Evil Dead. And maybe it's going away. Oh well. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the games that I've been playing. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Forever GnittWitt, and we are talking about the games that I have been playing a huge amount of games this week. Just picking at stuff. I probably should go back and play some newer games. I should maybe focus on finishing some games that are currently on my plate, but I'm really all over the place, and like I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm having a good time, but I must admit, like, when my focus and my interest is making video game related content, being a content creator, and as unprofessional as I am with no money, coming from all of this, like, I want to make good content. I want to make relevant content. I want to make relatable content. I want to talk to you. I want to talk about games and what's going on and all of this stuff. There are times where my mind just kind of splits apart into these different fragments of like, oh, I really want to play this game. I really want to go back to this, or, oh, I really want to, give this a shot, or, oh, this is on sale. Maybe this is finally my time to pick this game up and see how it is. Right. And then, there's this part of me that says, well, that, I'll give you a great example. A friend of mine keeps telling me I got to play the Judgment games, that if I like the Yakuza games, I should finally give the Judgment games a shot, and I should finally do it. And currently the Judgment games are on sale. I think I can get both for like $40, or one for like $18 and two or whatever. Like, I can get those games. They're on sale. I can get them. They're available. And I've been told that, like, with it being more of a detective kind of noir-ish story and focusing even more on the hand-to-hand combat and all that stuff, I'd really enjoy something like Judgment. And then I think about how, like, I haven't played a lot of Expedition 33. I didn't go back to playing Oblivion Remastered. I never finished Avowed from earlier this year. The only game I've played through to completion so far this year is Assassin's Creed Shadows. I started to think, like, well, man, like, what am I doing? Like, going back to these older games, or, I never finished, Mass Effect 2 in my remastered in my playthrough and all this stuff. Like, I just feel like sometimes, it's like that Pixie song where it's like, where is my mind at in terms of being pulled in all these other directions? Like, it's a good problem to have if you just love playing video games and you just want to have a good time and all of that stuff. Like, it's great to be able to have all these different options to choose from, all these different services that are constantly putting out great games left and right and all of this stuff. But then when you think about, like, trying to play games on a schedule, or trying to play games, for content purposes and all of this stuff, like, I just feel like it all falls apart for me real quick because, oh, Forza Horizon 5 came out on PS5. Maybe I should fire that game up and see what they've added to the game and what they've changed and all this other stuff. And I just get totally lost in the sauce. So if you wonder, like, why I sometimes struggle to commit to a game, or I overcommit to a game, or I bounce off a game so quickly and this and that and all of that, it's because, like, there is always this fight that I have to go through, and fight's a strong word, but it's always this kind of debate that I have to have with myself of, like, is it worth it to spend a bunch of time playing or replaying something like XCOM Enemy Unknown, a game that I'm probably not going to be able to make a lot of video content about, probably not something that is super relevant as a topic of conversation on the podcast, so on and so forth. But then the other thing I think is, like, why would I deny myself playing the games that I want to play, right? Who am I playing video games for? Am I playing video games so that I can talk about it with other people? Or am I playing games so that I can enjoy myself, form my own opinion, form my own thoughts, beliefs, biases, and then have a conversation with people, right? Am I just going to chase after new release after new release just so I have something to talk about? Which is kind of why I threw my hands in the air and I said, the Nintendo Switch 2, I probably not going to get one anytime soon. So I'm not too worried about having that conversation with people about, oh, I played this is what I thought, so on and so forth, right? And it's also why I don't get too hung up about the release of some games. Like, Borderlands 4 announced that they're moving their date up, or moving their date forward, with the possibility that that's going to be in order to get ahead of something like Grand Theft Auto 6 that's coming out later this year. Grand Theft Auto 6 currently is only scheduled to come out on Xbox Series X and S and PS5. It's not even going to come to PC. I don't even have the chance to play it if I wanted to, unless I went and I bought a console. So, there are times when I can see the forest from the trees and I can look at the bigger picture and be like, you know what, like, whatever you talk about, whether that's going to be news focused or new games or old games that you're playing, like, if you are somebody who is, and I'm talking about this about myself, but like, it's a scenario where I just have to be professionally interesting. I just need to have, an interesting way of looking at things, discussing things, conversing about things when it comes to what I play and how I see things, right? If I were to sit there and rattle off, just boring interpretations of games that I'm playing and all of this stuff, or the news, then it wouldn't matter whether I was playing the latest and greatest game or playing 30-year-old games or something in between. So there's always that pressure that I put upon myself to not only, keep up to date with current games, and what I'm playing, but also, having something to say about it. I'm going to find an Anthony Bourdain quote for just a moment, because it's a quote that I often think about. And I see if I can pull this up here. It's a favorite quote that I have. And I often think about this quote a lot. This is from the late great Anthony Bourdain. I'm going to share this quote with you. I understand there's a guy inside of me who wants to lay in bed, smoke weed all day, and watch cartoons and old movies. My life is a series of stratagems to avoid and outwit that guy. And I think to some extent, I am similarly in that, boat where I'm, I would love to just like lay around and just, I don't know, fuck it, just play, spend 200 hours playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something, regardless of what value that provides to, my content and to the videos I make and discussions we have on this podcast and all that stuff. But, you kind of always have to move forward to some extent. Like if you miss something, you might be able to go back. But this is why, like, I dropped games like, Diablo 4 and I dropped games like Destiny 2, because at some point I wasn't moving forward with the discussion of the latest and greatest games or the latest news stories of the world or whatever the case may be. Like, hell, I even thought, like, toss and turn, being like, do I want to talk about, A, do I want to talk about it? And B, do I want to even go through with this stupid plan to watch a bunch of Transformers movies? I think ultimately it'll be fine. It'll probably be something that I will share on my Letterboxd account. If you have Letterboxd account, you can find me, GnittWitt, over at Letterboxd. That's where I'm talking about movies, reviewing movies, ranking movies, listing the movies I've watched and all that stuff. I watched Sinners. It's a terrific movie. If you have not seen Sinners, man, that is a gorgeous movie. My favorite Ryan Coogler movie that I have ever seen. Oh my God, that movie is so good. If you're looking for a smart, soulful blockbuster that also deals in action and horror and all of that stuff, and with a beautiful message and beautiful storytelling and gorgeous cinematography, like, I cannot recommend Sinners enough. I was able to go see Sinners and not think about like, oh, do I make a video? Do I talk about this stuff? Like, I did it for me. I did it just to enjoy things. But there are plenty of times where I think, like, should I do this for an audience perspective? Should I do this as part of the content that I make? So just, I'm always talking about that. I'm always thinking about it, but keep that in mind as I kind of go through the stuff that I have been playing. I've been slowly replaying XCOM Enemy Unknown. It is a terrific game. One of my favorite turn-based tactical games. That game is hard as hell. I'm playing on the easiest setting with some modifiers to it, and I'm still finding that game to be hard as hell. XCOM Enemy Unknown, if you don't know, that is from the Firaxis people. Those are the people that make Civilization. Those are also the people that made Marvel's Midnight Suns, a game that I absolutely love. Midnight Suns, one of my favorite games in recent memory. Just love that game. And, with XCOM Enemy Unknown, it's that thing where you are taking turns moving your soldiers throughout, across the battlefield. You are making decisions outside of the battle in terms of how to allocate resources, what to research, what to invest in for upgrades to your soldiers and weapons and armor and all that stuff. And then it's also that thing of like, you are XCOM, so you are defending the entire world. And sometimes when you go into battle, you have to make choices about, oh, Mexico is being invaded by aliens. Los Angeles is being invaded by aliens, and Italy, some part of Italy is being invaded by aliens. And I can only pick one mission, and whichever one you don't pick, there's going to be panic and terror and fear that spreads throughout that other part of the world. So what choices do you make? How do you kind of combat, not being everywhere at once? And then there's also the added pressure of like, if you lose a soldier during battle in XCOM, they're dead for good. They don't come back. They're all the upgrades you've put into them, all the experience they've earned being a soldier, taking out aliens. And it's a game where you're basically like going around the world trying to defend the planet Earth from alien invaders. It's a really, really cool game. It is hard as hell at times, but I really enjoyed it. It's one of the few games where I appreciate not only acting in terms of what I want to do, but reacting to the things that kind of, the choices I make, the mistakes I make, and all that stuff. Really enjoying that game. It kind of got me thinking about it in a world where people still love Baldur's Gate and all these other turn-based, games. Like XCOM is, Enemy Unknown specifically, is close to my heart. Never got around to playing XCOM 2, but my understanding with XCOM 2 was it kind of similar to Doom Eternal. It kind of assumes that you have played a lot of XCOM up until that point. And I tried XCOM 2 a little bit, and I was like, oh man, I am not equipped to play this game at all. So kind of bounced off it and went to XCOM Enemy Unknown, which I'm slowly chipping away at, having a great time. A game that has been in early access for some time that I kind of ignored, but finally got around to playing, is RoboQuest. RoboQuest is a first-person rogue-like kind of run-based action game where you play as robots shooting other robots. It is a very the story is very thin. It's a little on the short side of things. Like, you can beat that game in like anywhere from like 8 to 20 hours. You can play the game single player, you can play the game cooperative, but it's a pretty short game. I've only put about 3.5 hours into RoboQuest so far, but I really like it. So the structure of RoboQuest is, when you die, you have to restart your run. That's the way the game works, right? Similar to like Balatro or Spelunky or any of these other games. Like, when you die, you might be able to carry over some upgrades and some stuff that you've unlocked in the game, but once you die, you gotta restart it. But with something like RoboQuest, you are always getting some amount of upgrade currency and abilities that you will be able to use to make yourself stronger for the next time. So there's no like real sense of lost progress, assuming you can get through a couple of levels in each run before you die. You will still make some amount of progress in the game, no matter what. But as you get through the game, you are unlocking different characters. So you unlock things like the engineer class, who can like throw at a turret. The recon class, you can unlock different gadgets. There are boss battles, the ranger, the commando, all these different kind of characters that if you say you start a run of the game with somebody like the commando is going to have different upgrades that you will unlock as you go through the run to upgrade their abilities and perks and stuff like that. You also find new weapons. You can carry 2 weapons with you. So you might find a dual submachine gun that increases damage as you move. So if you're running and gunning at the same time, you would increase weapon damage instead of if you just stood still. There are other weapons where it increases rate of fire as you hold down the gun, but you move slowly as a result. There's like shotguns and snipers and explosives, and there's different types of guns in terms of like, oh, this is an energy weapon, this is a bullet-based weapon, and all of this other cool stuff. But you pick something like the Ranger class, and they're going to have unique abilities to that class that you can then upgrade as you do your run. You are finding currency in the environment that you take back with you when you die, so that when you start the next run, you might have more weapons to choose from at the start of the run, or you might have more health at the start of the run, so that you are making progress as you go through it. And basically, it's level based. So you'll start in the first level, and it's kind of like this desert area, rocky mountain area, And then as you get to the end, you'll fight a boss. Then the next boss, in the next environment will be like an oasis. It's all like green and lush. And then you get through that environment shooting robots and then, other evil robots and all this stuff. And then you get to the boss battle, so on and so forth. So I've made it pretty far. But I've never beaten a run of RoboQuest. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really cool. It's cool to see it on Game Pass. I think it's like $20. No, sorry. I think it's like $35, what I think might be a little steep for a game that is potentially 8 to 20 hours long. Seems a little steep, but I really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. The shooting is pretty good. I like, the randomization of like, oh, what weapon am I going to get? What upgrades am I going to get? And all this stuff. Like RoboQuest, pretty neat. I'm pretty happy with it. I fired up a little bit of Forza Horizon 5 to see what they have done to the game with the Horizon Realms update, and I'm not too impressed by what they seem to be doing with Forza Horizon, at least in this update. In fairness, if you've never played Forza Horizon, you're going to see an incredible wealth of content in terms of, what's available for you to do and race and do all this stuff. Like, there's been a ton of free updates that they've added to Forza Horizon 5 to make it a game that you can play for damn near forever. But if you played it for damn near forever, like I have, you might come into this and be like, okay, well, what have they done? What are the big things they're adding with the PlayStation, store update and all of this stuff? And what it seems like is they've added a bunch of environments that you can kind of just fuck around in to some extent. Like, it seems to be more focused. Well, I shouldn't say it seems to be more focused. I played one of the Horizon Realms, which is basically, they took the stadium that is in the open world and they filled it with ice and they made it an ice rink, and you can go into it and just freely just skate around with your car, drift and do little jumps and smash into Christmas trees and all of this stuff. Or you can start the challenge mode, which is basically how many stunt points can you earn within a certain period of time in this frozen in this ice hockey rink. And I kind of did that and I was like, that's cool, but like I would rather like move a little bit faster. Like I'd rather just tear through the open world doing stunts, driving through cactuses, going off jumps and drifting and spinning donuts and all this stuff, like in a more exciting part of the open world than a ice hockey rink. So then I fired up a different Horizon Realm, which is basically like a race track. It's just like a kind of a technical race track that you would maybe see in more like a Forza Motorsport, a more serious racing game. And I kind of drove around that for a little bit, but I didn't try the challenges. So it seems like there's like, I don't know, maybe 5 or more of these different realms that they have given you that are these different standalone parts of the world that you can visit by loading into them. And you can either freely explore them, or you can do the challenges in those environments if you want to. But I was like, I would have maybe preferred new races or something like that to unlock. That being said, like Forza Horizon 5, like man, oh man, just an incredible game. I am so excited that people are getting a chance to play both Forza Horizon 5 and Indiana Jones and The Great Circle on PS5. I think those are 2 of Xbox's best games in a long time. I know pricing might be a little steep for them as maybe older games, especially in the case of Forza Horizon 5, or maybe they don't want to spend all that money on the additional DLC. But like, man, if you get the chance to play Forza Horizon 5 and you like racing games, you like open world games, I don't know if it gets any better than Forza Horizon 5. Really excited to see how PlayStation fans react as the game goes along. But this also probably means it will be a few years before we get another Forza Horizon. I can't imagine we get one for at least 2 years, assuming that it's successful on PlayStation, that people want more content from Forza Horizon 5 as the years go on. But also playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, man, like that, that is the game where I will just think to myself, fuck it, man, maybe I should just play nothing but Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I could play it for hundreds of hours and do all of this shit. It's been a slow go for me in Assassin's Creed Odyssey because I'm still trying to see how much I like doing the boat stuff. With it being set in ancient Greece, there is a lot of water between the different environments and different islands in the game. So if you don't like boating stuff, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is not going to be for you. But if you do, there is still plenty of open world stuff, running through cities and towns. And I've been hunting a lot of wolves and deer and, trying to get my resources so that I can because it's this thing of like, oh, I found treasure that I sold and then I use the money to buy, upgrade currency that I could use to upgrade my ship, or I hunted down a bunch of wolves and found their leather, took leather from them, which I don't think wolves make leather, but what do I know? And then I use that to upgrade my, weapons and armor and all of this stuff. So there is a lot of carrot on a lot of stick in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, both in terms of story, progression and quests and all of that stuff, but also the upgrade mechanics. And I'm always a sucker for making the numbers go higher and getting better gear and better loot and all of that stuff, which is very present in something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, very present in something like RoboQuest, and to some extent, XCOM Enemy Unknown. I bounced off the Oblivion Remastered because the thing is that once you get out, so the game starts with you kind of in this prison, and then you kind of are taken through the sewer system, and then at some point you exit the sewers into the open world. When you play in those kind of tightly confined, very small, closed off areas, the game looks beautiful and it runs pretty well. But once you get out into the open world, the game runs like shit. Going back to talking about frame rate, the frame rate is not only very low, but also very inconsistent at times. It feels like kind of a stuttery, janky, unrefined kind of mess at times. And the only real way to improve it would be if you were to lower the graphical quality on something like PC in order to make that game look a lot better. As such, I kind of struggled with keeping on with Oblivion Remastered. I was like, this makes me kind of, from a dated gameplay perspective, it kind of makes me wish that I went back and played Avowed. From a graphics perspective, it makes me wish that the game ran a lot better than it currently does. So I kind of bounced off of Oblivion Remastered. I might get back to it eventually, but not high on my list, despite being a very recent game. And speaking of very recent games, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, we were talking about it earlier on the podcast. I've played a little bit of it. I have not played a lot of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It was a scenario where I've been going to like a lot of medical appointments. I'm fine. I'm doing totally fine. But it's a scenario where like almost every week I have some sort of medical appointment. Like later today, I'm going for RMT massage, and then other appointments and all of this shit. So it's a scenario where I've really, between that and content creation and playing games for fun that I just want to play for myself, like I've not put a lot of time into Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I've maybe put like 2 hours into the game. I'm very, very early on, so I'm going to hold back on talking about a lot of Expedition 33 until next week. Hopefully I'll have more of a chance to play it by this time next week, but we shall see. There's always tons of videos going up on my YouTube channel all throughout the week, so make sure to head over to my YouTube channel. I am GnittWitt across all social media. You can also find me on linktree.com/GnittWitt. That is GnittWitt. This is a bit of a longer podcast. I appreciate you hanging out with me. A lot of news, a lot of games to talk about, but that is going to do it for the show. Thank you so much for watching, listening, or hanging out with me. I appreciate it all so much. Check out some more YouTube content as well, and we'll see you all next week. Take it easy.